What do you do when you're not inspired? I'll tell you what I do. I pull in my Chop It Up inspiration guide and I start cutting into pattern paper. I have a really cute little project in store for you today. Stay tuned.
You are what I'm looking for. I know what I'm looking for.
Alright, so today's video I'm going to be using my Chop It Up template reference book. This book is filled with ideas to spark your creativity. So the idea behind this is to pull out pattern paper and start cutting it up to create fun projects. This book is filled front to back with 20 plus ideas on what to do with that pattern paper. So for today, I'm going to create some large vintage Christmas tags. I'm using a template here that's going to help me get 8 large 3 by 5 inch tags. I've got this vintage paper pack from Authentique and I just picked this up at a warehouse clearance sale. I'm not even sure if you can buy this online. If you can, I will link it in the description box down below. And I just really love this vintage feel. And I love these little vintage Santas. And I'm going to use that vintage Santa pattern paper to create my large tags. So I'm just going to pull out the piece that I want. And I'm going to grab my trimmer and I'm going to cut this down to 12 inches. I'm going to cut away the little branding strip on the top of this paper. And then I'm going to take a look at my template guide and it's going to tell me what I need to do in order to create the tags that I want. So first I'm going to need to cut this down to 10 inches. So you want to pay attention to the orientation of the way that you want your tags to be. So if you want your pattern to be upright like this piece, I need to turn it one turn to the right. So I want to make sure that my guys are kind of sideways here. And then I'm going to trim off 2 inches. I'm going to save this piece. I don't end up using it in today's video. I typically would use this extra strip to create a package or a belly band around my set of tags if I'm going to give it away. In my Chop It Up template guide, it gives you the measurements to turn this into a few extra smaller tags. But I'm not going to worry about that today. I'm just going to worry about the bigger tags. The next step is to take this larger piece and leaving it in the same orientation, I'm going to cut this down to 5 inches. So I'll have 2 pieces that measure 5 by 10. And then I'm going to load it up into my trimmer, making sure that my pattern is upright. And I'm going to start cutting at 3-inch increments. We'll start at 9 inches, and then 6 inches, and then 3 inches. And this is going to give us 8 pieces that measure 3 by 5. And because these 2 pieces are stacked on top of each other, I'm just making sure that they kind of don't get misaligned. I don't want any crooked tags. I want these to turn out really nice and make sure that everything is straight and even and looks great. All right, so I get those all cut out. The next step in the Chop It Up book is to trim the corners with decorative punches or scissors to make them look like fancy tags. So that's it for the template book. That's all we need from there. We have our inspiration, our measurements and idea, and now we can start letting our creativity go free here. So I've got my tags all cut out. I still haven't quite figured out what I want to do, but I have a pretty good idea. So I've got this little corner punch. You can use scissors here. You can use your trimmer, or if you have an angle punch or something like that. I'll leave this little one linked down below. I picked this up from Amazon and I just love the way that it creates simple and effective tags. So I'm just going to punch the corners on the top of all of my cardstock and get my pieces of paper turned into something that looks a little bit more like a tag. I'm going to punch a hole here. Now, I would recommend that you don't punch the hole right now. Leave it till the end and you'll see why later on. So that's all I'm going to do to these pieces of paper for now. We'll set this aside and I'm going to pull in some craft cardstock. I'm going to create some smaller tags that I'm going to stamp on and adhere to the back of the Santa. So I'm just going to pop a piece of cardstock into my trimmer and I'm going to cut this down across the 8.5 inch side. I'm going to cut this down to 4.5 inches. And then I'm going to cut across the 11 inch side into 2.5 strips. So this is going to give me 4 pieces that measure 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Okay, and I have a little scrap left over and I've got one more piece left out of that cardstock. I'm going to cut this down to 2.5 inches. We're starting across the 4 inch side and we're going to trim that down to 2.5 inches. rotate the cardstock and trim at 4.5 inches. So out of one piece of 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, we're going to end up with 6 tags, and we just need a couple of more for our set of 8 tags. So I'm going to grab one more sheet of cardstock and I'll cut this down to 4.5 inches, and then rotate and cut 3 more pieces that measure 2.5. So I do have one extra here, but I thought, well, just in case I mess up stamping, I'll have an extra piece. All right, so we're all done with the trimmer here. I'm going to angle cut these corners the same as I had with the tag. So it's going to match perfectly with our pattern paper tag. I've got all these cut out and ready to go. I'm going to pull in my Misty stamping tool and I'm going to load up a couple of pieces. I'm going to stamp some sentiments on here, and I'm using the Misty stamping tool because it'll give me perfect placement and I'll get all of my images stamped in the same spot every time. So I'm going to pull in the Gina K Designs Holiday Tapestry stamp set, and this is one of my favorite holiday sets from Gina K Designs that was released last year. So I'm going to pull in a greeting that says Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I'm also going to grab the little to and from. I'll get those lined up on my tag where I want them to go, and then I'm going to close the door of the Misty and press to pick up those stamps, and then I'll just make sure that they're nice and straight. And I'm going to readjust my tags, make sure they're in the corner of the Misty, and then I'm going to get to stamping. I'm going to stamp all of these tags with the same greeting, and I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink here. This is my favorite ink for stamping sentiments. So I'll close the door of the Misty and press, and voila, we have a beautiful Merry Christmas tag with a nice spot to write our to and from. So I'll do that to all of my tags, and then I'm going to get ready to put all these together. I'm just taking my stamped greeting and lining it up against my tag, making sure that it looks how I want it to. And I'm going to grab some liquid glue and cover the back of this little tag and then pop it in the center of my pattern paper tag. Now, this is the reason why I had mentioned not to punch the hole until after, because this little tag covers up my hole. So I'm going to have to come back in and punch holes over again. So I would recommend just waiting to the end to do that. All right, so that looks good. I'm happy with that look. And I'm going to get all of these pieces glued onto the pattern paper. And then I'm going to come back with my Crop-A-Dile and punch my holes again. And I'm being very careful to make sure I'm lining it up in the same spot and just punching out the craft cardstock and not making new holes in my pattern paper. All right, so those are all ready to go. Now the next thing I wanted to do was to distress the edges. I've got some Distress Oxide ink and I'm using the Vintage Photo. And I'm just going to ink up the edges of this pattern paper. I think it really helps elevate the vintage feel, and it really looks nice. Once I'm done here, I'm going to put the two pieces side by side to kind of show you the real difference that this makes. So I'm going to do this to the front and the back of my pattern paper and just really ink up those edges and distress them. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm not really worrying about where the ink is going. I'm just scuffing up the edges of this cardstock. All right, so here's a comparison of the two tags before and after, front and back. So you can really see the difference that ink makes. It really creates that beautiful vintage look. All right, to finish these off, I have some twine here, and it might be jute. I really don't know the difference. To me, it's sort of the same thing, but I've got this stuff here, and I'm just gonna use my trimmer to give me a guide of how long of a piece I want to cut. So it's just going to be sort of my sample tester piece, and then I'm going to use that piece to create multiples of the same length. I want all my tags to be a matching set, so I'm cutting up all of these strips. I've also got some antique bronzed trinkets here. There's some snowflakes and some trees, and I want to add these to my tags. So I'm going to take a piece of that twine and I'm going to fold it in half and poke it through the tag and then create a little slip knot and pull gently. And then I'm going to feed one of the little trinkets through the top of the twine. And then I'm going to tie another knot to secure that into place. And then that's it. I really like that cute little charm on there and all of the little elements that we've done to create these tags to make them look vintage and fun. And I'm really excited to create more of these for all of my Christmas packages this year. Here's a close-up look at our finished project. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I appreciate the support. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd love to have you along my card making journey. All the products that I've used in today's video will be linked in the description box down below. And coming up on screen are some videos I think you may enjoy, including a playlist of my entire Chop It Up series with over 60 plus videos to inspire you to get crafty in your creative space. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!